Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sweet Take. I am super excited to have Michael Potts back with us to recap some of the top headlines from the last two races at the Dutch Grand Prix as well as in Monza. Michael, how are you doing today? And what's on your mind from these last two races?
Hello. Yeah, very good. Thanks. It's been quite an exciting, well, one very exciting race and one quite dull one, I thought. Although all the feedback I've received online has been that people really enjoyed Monza. So, what was your take on Monza and Zandvoort?
I thought Monza was pretty boring until the end where we got, almost too much excitement with the McLaren driver swap. And Zandvoort, I thought was also kind of similar until the end with again Lando's DNF, but there was definitely more action going on at Zandvoort. I am kind of sad that it's the second to last year that it's going to be on the calendar because it just looks like a really cool track. But yeah, lots of headlines. I think ones dominating right now are McLaren. There's a lot of stuff going on at McLaren. The drivers' championship seems to be kind of extending. Oscar's extending his lead, but not really to any of Lando's fault. Like his car failed him at the Dutch Grand Prix. And McLaren have known to have super reliable cars. I read a stat that was Lando's first mechanical retirement in 3 years, which is kind of unheard of when you think about F1, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, 10 years ago, for 4 days of practice in Barcelona, they probably managed around 10 laps in the 4 days. There was a time when McLarens were ridiculously unreliable and not too
Hmm.
far ago. Yeah, so much to unpack. So let's start with this Oscar Lando team orders situation. I've got a theory I want to run past you. Monza was exciting for the first few laps, and then it settled down into a pretty dull race. And we had the slow pit stop. Oscar got ahead of Lando. The team orders asked him to switch back. And both drivers and the team all seemed pretty comfortable with it as far as I could tell. You were listening to the radio. Did that sound like that to you?
I heard Lando getting booed at the podium celebration, and I was trying to figure out why was that happening. Is it because that people were unhappy that with the team orders and the driver swap? And he actually got asked that question in his post-race press interview afterward, and he didn't really know either. But on the team radio, when they were having the conversation, Lando said should Oscar pit first to cover off Charles with fresher tires, and because we have the time to do so, I'm okay to do that. So he kind of gave up that first call to pit to help his teammate. And so when the slow stop happened, it wasn't his fault. Honestly, I thought everyone was making a big deal out of something where Lando was just trying to help his team out first. And now the media are trying to create this, oh, this sets a terrible precedent. What's it gonna be next? Something's gonna like be out of the driver's control and they're gonna be pressured to have team orders. But I think it's a little bit blown out of proportion.
So my theory is that because the race was fairly dull, all the journalists need to fill column inches. And this is a great piece of controversy to invent. As far as I could see, both drivers were happy with the situation. I heard Oscar in the post race interview, and he was fine with it. It was a good moment for Oscar to do this sort of thing because he was giving up a second for a third. That really doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of his life. He loses a few points to Lando because of a huge buffer. Lando feels that the team is supporting him, and he had 2 weeks where he had lost points because of team failure. He would have been a miserable driver. So I think it's another case of McLaren managing this really, really well, and everyone else trying to find something to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, Oscar did have a bit of a spicy radio message on. I thought we said that a slow pit stop was just part of racing, but I think this is before he learned about how Lando had suggested that he pit first to cover off Charles with the softs. And so, Oscar's like the most rational driver there is on the grid. So I'm sure once he hears like the sequence of events, like he was fine with it, like you said in the press conference after.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it was an easy one. Had it been for the win, had the margin been much closer between the drivers, then I think we would have been in for a much more exciting situation. But
Yeah, I agree.
so the difference now is 31 points between the two. It's not insurmountable with 8 races to go. But yeah, Lando needs to finish ahead of Oscar quite a few times. And he kind of needs Max to get in there as well.
Max to get in there and stir some trouble up with Oscar, you mean? Is that what you mean by that?
No, just get ahead of Oscar and behind Lando. So push Oscar to third a couple of times when Lando wins. That'll all help Lando because he's not going to be able to win every single race. until the end of the year. But a couple of races where Red Bull are involved, and it looks like Red Bull could be there on merit because Max has driven outstandingly since the break. Second in Zandvoort, first in Monza.
I know. I mean, it was also Kelly's first race back after, giving birth to Lily. So I think maybe Kelly might be Max's good luck charm because he ended Monza with a 20-second lead on the McLarens, which how the tides have turned. We spent so much time talking about how awful and hard that Red Bull car is to drive. And I think what we're seeing here is just the talent of Max. Like he makes these unconventional decisions with car setup. I think Lauren Mecky's talked about how they didn't really agree with the direction that Max wanted to go in. I think it was more lower downforce than they thought they needed to do. And yet he pulls out this insane lap, the fastest lap in all of F1 history. He wins the race by 20 seconds. Whether you like Max or not, you cannot debate the fact that he is like one of a kind.
Yeah. And it's actually quite nice having him in the not the fastest car because he really gets an opportunity to prove um, his skill and his brilliance. So for all the Max fans, actually having him as a slight underdog is a bit more interesting. But yeah, brilliant seeing Kelly there. It's been such a long time that she hasn't been around, and to come back for this race where he did well. I don't think many people thought that the Red Bull would be the winning team going into this weekend. So yeah, lovely seeing her. She seemed really happy, and yeah, nice to see her back. Lots of other girlfriends were
Definitely.
around this weekend. Alex was amazing. You spotted what she was wearing. What fashion was she up
Yes.
to this weekend?
No, Alex, I think she was working with a stylist this weekend, an Italian stylist named Carota, who's super talented. And she worked with Dolce& and Gabbana and wore two vintage D&G outfits. There is specifically these shoes that she wore that I'm absolutely obsessed about. They have red roses on the back. They're so cute. And yeah, of course, she looked stunning, as did so many of the other girlfriends that were at the race at Mons. It seemed like everyone was there this weekend from what I saw.
The only person I didn't see was Oscar's Lily. She was probably back at the factory working very, very hard on
Right.
upgrades for next year's car. But everyone else was there. And there seems to be like a really nice group among the girlfriends. They all seem to get along. They're all hanging out. I saw Rebecca coming up to the Ferrari garage a few times. And there seems to be like a nice camaraderie. I thought one of the best outfits was Maggie, Lando Norris's girlfriend. She had this beautiful blue number on Sunday. And yeah, she's seems to be getting very into the Formula One scene. And I think she's kind of finding a lot more comfort and yeah, just being more at herself.
I wonder how they met because Lando's best friend Max, his girlfriend Pietra, is very good friends with Maggie. And so I wonder if she introduced her to Lando. But they have been a little bit mysterious about their relationship. There hasn't been like an official we are dating announcement or, put post about them, but she has been at multiple races now. I think she was first spotted in Monaco when Lando won at
Yes.
that race, and obviously Monza. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think you arrive at the track with the driver who's single without being not single. I mean, that is like the biggest way to announce a relationship without actually saying that you're in a relationship.
I heard from a very, very reliable source that they are dating. So, yeah, I think they just want to keep it between themselves and they want to do it their own way. So, yeah, don't expect a big announcement. But yeah, they both seem very happy.
Oh yeah, they make like a great couple together. And I'm sure there's so much attention on drivers these days that if it we hope that it works out and they seem very happy. But if it doesn't work out and it hasn't worked out with other girlfriends in the past, you don't want any of that like negative context or discussion happening around them. So I can understand why they want to. We're doing our own thing. You guys can say what you want.
It must be really, really hard to date a driver because their schedule is so demanding. They're away for such a long time. Yes, you can join them in these exotic locations, but at the same time, they're working, they're training, they can't go out for dinners, they have to eat a specific regimented diet. They've got a huge schedule of commitments, whether it's guest commitments or working with the engineering team or whatever they have to do. Those race weekends are very, very busy. And then you've got this huge amount of social media scrutiny. Every fan has an opinion. Rival fans tend to attack girlfriends if they don't like that driver. There's some nasty things out there, and they have to put up with all of that. Yeah, it mustn't be easy.
No, it mustn't be. But Well, we're happy to see them. And I also love that
Yes.
they are building their little community and hanging out with each other. I would love to meet them all one day too.
Yeah. And Leo was there as well. So don't forget Leo. He was being very, very cute. Yeah.
The
But
cutest dog in F1.
unfortunately, yeah, even having the cutest dog in F1, it still didn't help Charles do that well in the race. Yeah, Ferrari have this thing where they're not great during the year, and then all of a sudden they come to Monza and they find this Ferrari in the back of the shed that just goes and gets pole position and gets on the podium. And this year they didn't have that. They had a difficult week in Zandvoort where they both crashed on the same corner. And then in Monza, they just were off the pace quite a bit. The one interesting thing, I spent a lot of time in the fan areas during the sessions, and there was a huge amount of support for Lewis. Every time he went past, the crowd clapped and cheered, and I think he's really, really loved by the Tifosi, despite the struggles that they're going through. And I think that they all see that it's a bigger project than 1 year and 1 year's results. But yeah, you often read in the press that there's disharmony at Ferrari and things aren't going well, but it doesn't seem like that. And it doesn't seem like that from their fans' point of view.
Well, that's encouraging because I think the Tifosi have had a reputation for being not patient. So, you know, if they see that there is more work to be done, and which there is more work to be done, and of course next year we've got the new regulations. I'm so excited to see how that's gonna shake out, and the car is becoming a lot more powerful from an engine standpoint, which is where Lewis won multiple world championships. So I don't want to get my hopes up, but I'm really excited to see what Lewis and Ferrari can accomplish next year.
Talking about next year and new teams, we did a video on which drivers we thought would be going to different places. Since then, one team has announced 2 seats, and you were right with both of those, and I was right with only one. So Cadillac have announced Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez, which is quite exciting. 2 old names coming back, very experienced drivers, race winners. What do you think about those two?
Well, I predicted it, so I'm very happy that
Yes.
I got the prediction right. I actually saw a really funny interview that they both did with Good Morning America, and Checo wanted to remind everyone that they were both still young and that they weren't old, and
They are
that
old.
they well old in like F1 terms. I think that Valtteri 36 and Checo's
Yeah.
35 or something like that. They're both like in their mid 30s. But I know in F1 terms that is old. But I'm excited for them. I think that they are going to provide so much amazing feedback to help that team develop. I think it's the right rational choice for the first year that Cadillac is on the grid. I think in 2027, though, we might see some shakeups. And then Colton Herta also got announced as Cadillac's reserve driver, which is almost a signal that they're grooming him to be into that F1 seat, being an American driver on an American team in a year in the future, maybe 2027.
Yeah, so he's got an exciting program next year. He's going into F2. That's quite a weird thing to go from IndyCar, from winning IndyCar races to F2, which is probably a step down, but he needs to get some super license points to qualify to race in Formula One. And it's a big gamble because he is a big name coming into a series where we've seen some big names not do that well recently. Ollie Behrman and Kimi didn't shine that much last year. It's a tough series to win and it's a tough series to do well in. So he's given himself a big challenge, but it'd be great to see him around the paddock because he is a character.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about Colton, so I'm looking forward to, seeing him around more often and getting to know his personality. Who was the third driver that you said was announced that with Pierre? Pierre got announced for his extension
Yes.
with Alpine, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, big deal. I spoke to him a little bit on the Sunday after that. Somebody asked him, how's your weekend going? And he was way back in the back of the grid. And he had this big grin on his face and he goes, it's brilliant. I've just had my contract extended. Yeah. So Carlton Herta, his nickname is Hooligan Herta. So I think that kind of gives you a context about like what we're going to expect from him.
So hooligan in the sense of being like a prankster or just doing funny antics?
I think just as a crazy racing driver, like all over the shop. So yeah, bit of a hooligan on track.
Okay, well, I'm very excited. Maybe we're going to see a Sunny Hayes in the making in real life on track.
Yeah.
Speaking of our driver predictions, though, one driver that we were both had almost 100% certainty on was George Russell at Mercedes. And what is
Yes.
going on with his contract? I thought it'd be done by now. I thought it was going to be done before Zandvoort, and now Baku is around the corner.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a strange one. I don't know who's playing hard to get in the situation. You would think that Mercedes don't have any better options available, so they would be quite keen to do it. And there's nowhere else for George to go, so he'd be keen for it. I wonder if they're just debating how many green M&Ms he gets in his room or not.
I saw Nico Rosberg say the funniest thing. He said, Toto Wolff is the hardest person to negotiate with. You're right in the middle of something and he disappears off the face of the planet. I had a really hard time figuring out my contract with Toto. And Toto does look like he would have the greatest poker face of all time. You'd almost be looking at him, trying to talk to him, trying to negotiate with him, but then you're starting to negotiate against yourselves and back down without him even having to say anything. I'm sure it would be quite tough to negotiate with Toto.
He's very good at getting people to agree with what he's saying, just by sort of cajoling them along. Yeah, I've watched him quite a bit in the sort of team principals meetings, and he can disagree with people and sound like he's making the same point as them. It's a very, very, very good skill. But yeah, so we're waiting for that. The other thing that we're waiting for is, does Isaac Hadjar now go to Red Bulls? And if so, when? He got third in Zandvoort. He looked pretty racy in Monza. He's full of confidence. Liam Lawson even said that he's ready for the Red Bull seat. So do you think that's going to happen this year, or are they going to wait until next year? And is it inevitable?
I hope that they wait until next year. I think that Isaac has proved himself to be more deserving of that seat over Liam, if those were the two choices, with, Isaac getting a podium, third place. And then he went from essentially last to 10th in Monza. He started from the pit lane, which was incredible in a track where we didn't really see that many overtakes. And so he has really been proving himself. And I hope for his sake that he just decides, if he does decide to go to Red Bull, do it next year when everyone's kind of starting from a blank slate. If not, there's just so much more comparisons that are, happening with the previous drivers that are there. And I also hope that Yuki has the ability to kind of market himself to other teams now about, what he's doing, because I'm worried for Yuki. I'm really worried for Yuki and whether or not he's going to have a seat next year.
Yeah, yeah, and it's an interesting one because if Aston Martin look like they've got a full stable, there isn't a natural place that Honda can influence things. So even if he does get some backing from Honda, it's hard to know where he could go. So yeah, things aren't looking great. I did hear from somebody saying that he had an option on the table. So yeah, it may not all be doom and gloom. There's definitely an Alpine seat available, probably. So yeah, let's see what happens there.
It was my crazy prediction that Yuki goes to Alpine. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't want to get,
Yeah.
over my skis too much in terms of my predictions here, but slowly a few of these fall into place, then maybe. Maybe I should buy a lottery ticket.
Well, should we think it's too early to do predictions for Baku?
Let's do it, Michael. Baku, street track. So
High speed track, technical sections as well as long straights.
okay. So knowing that, high speed tracks, hasn't the Red Bull Max has been saying that high speed tracks have suited them better than the lower speed corners? And then we also have Ferrari, who are very fast on straights. And you also have Charles Leclerc in a Ferrari, who has a street track specialty. So my predictions, the boring prediction would be Lando, Max, Oscar. But the more fun prediction would be Lando, Charles, Max. I'm going to say that.
Okay. Well, Oscar won last year. It was a brilliant, brilliant drive. Charles chased him the whole way. One of the great defensive drives in Formula One. So I think Oscar, this is the kind of circuit that he would be good at because he's so technical. So I'm going to go for Oscar. And I think that the Red Bull high speed advantage is going to be taken away because of the technical part of the track. So Max is going to be very fast in the straight, but he will lose time in the castle section. So I'm going for Oscar, Lando, Charles.
Oscar, Lando, Charles. Okay. Well, Michael, I know Baku is a special place in your heart because you photographed that incredible Daniel Ricciardo and Max crash years and years ago. So it's a great place. And I thought the Baku race weekend was really cool. I remember we stayed at one of the hotels around the track and you get driven around on golf carts. It seems very intimate as a circuit and a race weekend. And most people might not think about going to Baku, but I'd highly recommend it.
Yes. And there's a good chance that this is going to be the second to last Azerbaijan Grand Prix. So if you're looking for a race to do next year, it's one that I highly recommend. It's a very nice race weekend. Great food, lovely people, incredible location, and yeah, very, very cool racing. There's something weird with it that every alternative year, just about, there seems to be an absolutely mad race with lots of crashes and just drama. And then it has very boring races. So I'm not too sure what we're in for next year. I think last year was quite an exciting one. So this year might be a dull affair. More
Don't
incentive
jinx
to
it.
go next year.
Thanks everyone for tuning in for this week's race recap with Michael Potts. Make sure you're following Michael and subscribing to his YouTube channel. All of the links are just below. And as always, feel free to debate with us about our predictions, whether that's driver or race related. Until next time, talk to you later.